Hello and welcome to Nature Days Outdoor Learning Resources. I love this time of year because my favourite flowers are out. But my flowers are not beautifully coloured, they don't smell very nice, and they don't attract pollinators. But I still love them. My favourite flowers are grass flowers. Now, the great thing about grass is that when the grass has been cut, you might look at your lawn and just think it's grass. That's one thing. But usually it's a whole variety of species of grass, different species. And the diversity in your lawn might be much greater than you think. But you usually don't notice unless you leave the grasses to grow and then to flower. And then you can easily see the difference between the different species. But if you look very closely, the size and shape of the leaf is also different. So I'm going to give you some nice examples of some beautiful grass species that I love, but also some ideas of how you can use them to create some lovely grass pictures. First activity is create your own grass picture. And to do that you need to make a picture frame. Now you could just cut it out of cardboard, but I've collected some twigs here and created it into a frame. Next, pick your grasses and lay them out on top of the frame so that you can see the variety within those different grass species. You can experiment with different coloured backgrounds. Or with different arrangements. You can stick them down using glue, or if you have some sandpaper, which is reactive to the light, if you use that you can make some amazing silhouettes. Now I haven't got any sandpaper, but I'm going to try and do it with spray paints and see if that works. So arrange your grass flowers the way you want them, stick them down with a bit of blue tack, make sure they're not in a windy spot, and then spray over with spray paint and we'll see what happens. There's loads more species of grass, so if you haven't mowed in May, then have a look in your lawn before you mow in June and you'll see some amazing grass flowers. And if you want to identify them, stick around for my identification chart afterwards. Once you start looking in detail at these grass flowers, it's amazing what you see and what you can find out in your lawn. So if you've done no mow May, then this is a great time to go out and make an identification guide of the grasses found in your lawn before you mow it all, and it's very hard to identify them. This grass is called marram grass and it's found in the sand dunes. It's got a very large seed head here or flower head, and they can be very smooth compared to their leaves. The top of their leaves, they have quite a nasty spike. Now the amazing thing about marram grass is that unlike most plants, if it gets covered in sand and the sun gets blocked out, it doesn't just die, it actually grows faster so that it can get through that sand and get to the sun. It's also a xerophyte, which means that it doesn't mind being in an area with hardly any water. Because if you've ever made a sandcastle on the beach, you'll know that when you pour the water onto the sand, it just soaks in. And that's what happens to all the rain. So if you look at the leaf of a marram grass, it's actually a rolled up leaf. It's not flat. You can make it flat by unrolling it, but it's actually rolled up. And that means that when the water evaporates out of the tiny holes in the middle of the leaf, the stomata, they get caught inside this tube, and that means less water will evaporate. So it's a really good way of reducing how much water you use as a plant. So if you look, there's a line down the centre of the leaf, and if I push that open you can see inside there we've flattened out the leaf, so it's no longer rolled up. If I let go, rolls back up, and that's protecting it from losing any excess water. This is one of my favourites. That's because it's got an amazing Latin name. It's called Anthox anthem odoratum, but its actual English name is sweet vernal grass. I assume because if you eat it, it's quite sweet, but I haven't tried it. Now the leaves are quite thin, and you probably wouldn't notice them in a grass lawn because they're quite ordinary. But if we look at this flower head here, you can see all these tiny little threads coming out. These are the anther. So unlike our flowers, which have got beautiful petals and attract pollinators, these anthers have to stick out because it's the wind that's going to blow away the pollen. And anyone who gets hay fever this time of year, it's probably because of the grass pollen. So the anther will blow the pollen away, and I think these are pretty much empty because you can see there's nothing coming off. And then the pollen from the anther will land on another stigma of another grass, and then they will start to turn into the seeds. This grass here is called cock's foot because it's meant to look like a cock, as in a chicken's foot. So that's one claw at the front and two claws behind. So that's the one, two at the back, one at the front. Now again, if you look closely at this flower head, you can see the anthers sticking out, these white things dangling down. And again, not colourful, but they have to dangle in the wind so that when the wind blows past them, the pollen gets transported. Now lots of these have lost all their pollen, so we're starting to see the seeds developing. And these seeds are really important to us because this is an awful lot of our food. These grasses are similar or descended from some of the grasses we used to eat when we were living off the land. And now we still live off lots and lots of grasses, but we've cultivated them to make these tiny little seeds, you can see flowing around here, much, much bigger. So in the farmer's fields, you've got your wheat, you've got barley, you've got oats, and they all used to be this size. But after years and years of changing which species we use and letting them breed together, we've managed to make them much, much bigger so that each one of these seeds can be taken out, crushed, and turned into flour or into something else that we eat. Your breakfast cereal, probably. Now, this grass was one of my favourites when I was a kid because if you pull off these, or even if you pull off the whole head, you can stick it to somebody's jumper. And that's actually what they're made for. So these bits of hairs that come off the seeds that are very sticky are sticky so that they will stick into the fur of animals. So once this is turned into seeds, which it has now, they get transported and dispersed away from where the grass is by animals. So it's for seed dispersal. But if we pull back some of these hairs and try, if they're ripe, they should come away. There we go. And you should see the individual seeds there. So if this was something that we'd cultivated, those seeds would be much bigger. And if we wanted to eat them, we'd have to pull off one individual seed, and then we'd have to peel it. So you have to take away the chaff, the bit you don't want, the outside. Can you imagine peeling individual seeds like this? Now the way you do it is when it's dry enough and it's been in the sun, you literally throw it in the air. And the seed is heavier than the bit on the outside. So the seed falls to the ground and the chaff gets blown away by the wind. So if you do find some grass seeds, that's a nice activity to do. Try and separate out the wheat from the chaff. You can even try to make your own flour by crushing it, so between two stones, and then see how much flour you make and just get an idea of how much cereal grass is required to make a bag of flour. This grass is another beautiful one, and it is very furry. This is called Yorkshire fog, and it's a beautiful purple colour. You can see if I turn it round, you might be able to see the purple there. But not only is the seed head lovely and furry, but also the leaves are. They're very dowdy, which means that they've got lots and lots of hairs on them. So this is a beautiful one to see in the field, but also to give it a stroke. One of the most common grasses. This is perennial ryegrass. Very easy to identify because it's got these alternate patterns of one spikelet on one side, then the other, then the other, then the other. Makes some beautiful patterns all on its own. This is a meadow grass. You find lots of these in your lawn. and you can do a little trick with them. Flower in spring, bush in summer, leaves in autumn, tree in winter. This one is called tall oat grass. If I show you how tall it is, you'll understand why. That is a tall one, isn't it? I'm going to finish with my very favourite. This one has got an amazing Latin name. It's called Cynosaurus cristatus, which I always think sounds like a dinosaur. Its English name is crested dog's tail, and if you have a look at it again, it's got that amazing repeating pattern, a bit like the perennial ryegrass, but much more clumped up together and smaller, but so regimented. Absolutely stunning grass. I hope you've enjoyed finding out about the grass flowers in my garden, and I'd love to see any pictures of any ones you've got. There's some great apps online if you want to try and identify them. And this is the best time to get to grips with all the different grasses in your garden. So please tweet any photos that you've got, #NatureDays or @DawnNatureDays, or you can put them on the Nature Days Facebook page. And I look forward to seeing what grasses and what creations you've created with your grass flowers.